The 1951 UK general election was held on Thursday, the 25th of October. In the previous general election in 1950, the Labour government, led by Prime Minister Clement Attlee, had narrowly secured re-election with a slashed majority of just 5 seats. While Labour remained quite popular for its achievements since 1945, most notably the creation of the NHS, the expansion of social security, the nationalisation of industries, and the achievement of near full employment, the mood of the country had changed. The optimism of immediate post-war reconstruction had given way to fatigue. The continuing post-war austerity and rationing had exhausted voters. The razor-thin majority left the government extremely vulnerable. Prone to by-elections and divisions, it carried enormous weight to day-to-day governing. The Labour government had to watch every step it took, as a single rebellion could have cost them their majority. Britain's economic position in the early 1950s was fragile. The country was still burdened by wartime debt, heavily dependent on exports to earn foreign currency, and constrained by a chronic shortage of dollars. Although the Labour government had overseen a remarkable recovery in industrial output since 1945, this had come at the cost of continued austerity at home. Food rationing and clothing coupons remained part of daily life. In June 1950, the Communist North Korea invaded the non-Communist South Korea. The Korean War had indeed broken out, a crucial test for the West. This shattered any remaining hopes of ending austerity. Britain, a key ally of the United States and a founding member of NATO, committed troops and resources to the conflict. This decision had profound consequences for the British economy. Defense spending increased sharply. This forced the government to divert resources away from domestic spending to absolute warfare. Rearmament placed intense pressure on public finances and ballooned inflation. In 1950, inflation was around 3.1%, but that had increased to nearly 10% during the Korean War. The US demands for a rapid rearmament under NATO further strained Britain's industrial capacity. By 1951, a $300 million surplus in balance of payments had turned into a $400 million deficit. British export growth stagnated. This huge rearmament had proved an economic catastrophe. This program of rearmament also directly exposed deep ideological divisions within the Labour Party. The most serious rupture came over the introduction of prescription charges for dentures and spectacles in 1951, intended to help fund defense spending. Anurine Bevan, the architect of the NHS and a leading figure on the Labour left, regarded the changes as a betrayal of the principles of free healthcare. In April 1951, Bevan resigned from cabinet, followed by Harold Wilson and John Freeman. This resignation, known as the famous Bevanite split, publicly exposed Labour's internal conflicts and severely damaged what was left of the government's authority. From this point on, Labour appeared divided, defensive, and exhausted. The government struggled to project unity or purpose, while its parliamentary majority continued to look increasingly untenable. This caused a shift in the opinion polls. In the few months succeeding to the 1950 general election, Labour held a consistent but slender lead. However, by late 1950, that lead had evaporated completely. The Conservatives took hold of the principles, now with a more decisive lead, even reaching 14.5% in one occasion. By late 1951, Attlee concluded that the government could not continue effectively with such a slender majority amid mounting international and domestic pressures. The hope was that a fresh election would deliver a stronger mandate, an increased majority, and stabilize the infighting in the Labour Party.
It's a sellout for the paper boys as a general election suddenly looms in sight. Intelligent anticipation or inspired guess, it focuses attention on the only man who knows the answer, and there's excitement as Mr. Attlee leaves number 10. Then, with a hard winter ahead and threat of a split in his party, the Premier makes this dramatic broadcast announcement.
King has been pleased to signify his acceptance of my recommendation that His Majesty should proclaim the dissolution of Parliament on Friday, the 5th of October. In accordance with the provisions of the Representation of the People Act, polling day will fall on Thursday, the 25th of October.
The election campaign was shaped by wariness rather than enthusiasm. Labour defended its record, emphasizing its achievements while in government, and warned that Conservative victory might endanger the welfare state, even though the Conservatives had already promised to leave most of it alone a few years ago. The opening of the Labour manifesto in 1951 said, quote, "Labour, proud of its record, sure in its policies, confidently asks the electors to renew its mandate," unquote. The manifesto pointed out 4 tasks facing Britain: secure peace, maintain full employment and an increased production, bring down the cost of living, and build a just society. The manifesto also argued that only a Labour government could make Britain complete these tasks. In the task of securing peace, the manifesto argued that Labour would prioritize international cooperation, collective defense, and economic development. In the task of maintaining full employment, the manifesto promised to tackle shortages, monopolies, and inefficiency by expanding public enterprise, strengthening exports, and Commonwealth resources. In the task of bringing down the cost of living, the manifesto promised to strengthen controls and reform markets to reduce prices further. And finally, in the task of social justice, the manifesto pledges to extend equality through education, tax reform, housing, and limits on wealth and profits. Like the previous 1950 Labour manifesto, let us win through together. This 1951 Labour manifesto attacks the Conservative record of the 1930s, which was a decade of exceptionally high unemployment. The Conservatives, taking advantage of Labour's ideological division, were now more unified than ever. Their manifesto argued that Britain needed a more stable, united government that will confront the challenges and problems of the post-war period more effectively, and promised to cut expenditure. The manifesto also promised to strengthen free enterprise by loosening the nationalizations that had been done by the incumbent Labour government, and halting any further attempts of doing so, including the recently nationalized iron and steel. The manifesto further pledged to improve public services like housing and health, promote higher production and foreign trade, protect agriculture, and uphold individual freedom, while maintaining peace and defense. Interestingly, the manifesto promised to restore university representation in Parliament, which had been abolished under the Representation of the People Act 1948. The Liberal Party's manifesto in this 1951 general election was titled The Nation's Task. The manifesto called for national unity and warned Britain faced serious post-war economic and international challenges, urging a strong Liberal caucus in Parliament to bridge class divisions and support sensible policy. It emphasized collective security and international cooperation for peace, boosting production and lowering prices to efficiency, safeguarding social services while, quote, avoiding false promises, unquote, fighting waste and monopoly, and promoting fair taxation and agricultural reform. Throughout the campaign, the Conservatives consistently maintained a lead, although a more narrow one than before the election. Like in 1950, Clement Attlee conducted a nationwide tour during the election. Because of the disappointing Liberal result in 1950, the Liberals were forced to field only 109 candidates, as their finances were much more strained. Labour focused on its record and warned that the Conservatives would harm the welfare state, which their manifesto emphasized, even though the Conservatives, again, repeatedly promised to leave most of it alone. The Conservatives ran a disciplined campaign, focusing and emphasizing themselves as the more steadier option to government. The Liberals and the Conservatives campaigned for decentralization. And here are the results. Oh boy, we have a mess here. In the popular vote, Labour won 230,000 more votes than the Conservatives. But in terms of seats, it was the Conservatives who won a majority. That's right, they won 321 seats, which was a majority of 17. They won 48.0% of the popular vote. The Labour Party was defeated, even though they won 48.8% of the votes, which is, by far, Labour's best ever popular vote result in its history. Labour only won 295 seats and suffered a net loss of 20. The Liberals suffered a more disastrous result. They won 6 seats, their fewest on record, which will be matched in future elections. They also won only 2.6% of the popular vote. This is also the cause of the Conservatives winning more seats than votes. 2/3 of the Liberal election were indeed left of centre, or right of centre, who embraced some liberal ideals but unwilling to back Labour. Churchill returned to power at the age of 76, which is a record that still stands to this day for a Prime Minister beginning their term.
Rabbit, run, run, run. Bang, 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 bang goes the farmer's gun. Run, rabbit, run, rabbit, run, 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 run. Run, rabbit, run, rabbit, run, run, run. Don't give the farmer his fun, fun, fun.